there's one thing the French national team never lacks, it's superstar talent. French football always brings that much sharper turn of pace. Honestly, this current squad might be one of the most gifted attacking groups the country has ever seen. You have Kylian Mbappe, the captain and absolute face of modern French football. Watching Mbappe attack feels almost unfair. The speed, the movement, that deadly calm finish. At times, he feels like a modern Thierry Henry. Then beside him is Ousmane Dembele, who finally exploded into the dominant winger so many people knew he could be years ago. After taking home the 2025 Ballon d'Or, Dembele is at the absolute peak of his powers. Then you throw incredible talents like Michael Olise and Raymond Domenech into the mix. Olise plays with this calm elegance, making everything around him look slow and completely controlled. The way he controls the tempo and glides through tight spaces reminds fans of Michel Platini. His post-match interviews, on the other hand, are completely different. Would you rather get an assist, or do you prefer shooting on your own for the goal? Whatever. Then you have Raymond Domenech. He plays like a true street footballer. Tight ball control, pure improvisation, ridiculous flair, and totally unexpected passes. He is exactly the type of player who tries things most footballers would never even think about attempting. Sometimes his pure creativity gives you real flashes of Zinedine Zidane. That has always been the magic of French football. But history also shows us something else entirely. For France, raw talent alone has never guaranteed tournament success. We have seen times where the squad looked absolutely unstoppable on paper, yet completely unstable on the pitch. The hardest part is always managing those massive egos, superstar personalities, and wildly different characters to pull in the exact same direction when tournament pressure hits. Even though millions expect the French squad to win before a single ball gets kicked, we must remember they have a weird habit of totally self-destructing right when the entire world expects them to dominate. No tournament shows that better than the 2002 disaster. France arrived at the World Cup in South Korea and Japan as undisputed kings of international football. They were the defending world champions. They were also defending European champions, and heavy favorites to win the entire tournament again. On paper, the French squad looked absolutely ridiculous. You had Thierry Henry dominating the Premier League, David Trezeguet scoring for fun, and Djibril Cissé totally tearing apart league defenses. But behind the scenes, the entire atmosphere surrounding the squad grew wildly complacent and arrogant. Players were treated like untouchable global celebrities before the actual tournament had even kicked off. Commercial events, sponsor appearances, photo shoots, huge parties. God, I hope Diddy wasn't there. Everything dragged their focus away from the actual football. Former midfielder Emmanuel Petit later admitted the team basically convinced themselves they were totally unbeatable. The French Federation even shipped extreme luxuries to the tournament. They flew in fancy wines, and multiple reports claimed players partied late into the night. Physically, the squad was completely exhausted before it started. Patrick Vieira later admitted he felt completely drained before the group stage even began. I am honestly not sure if Vieira meant his actual physical fitness, or whatever was going down at some of those late-night parties. Then came the ultimate disaster. Just days before the opening match, Zinedine Zidane got badly injured in a completely meaningless friendly against South Korea. Missing Zidane and an injured Robert Pires, the French attack looked completely lost. Manager Roger Lemaire refused to adjust tactics, stubbornly forcing a rigid system that was completely useless without their main superstar playmaker on the pitch. Sounds a bit like Ruben Amorim, honestly. Then came opening night against Senegal, and football history completely changed forever. Senegal played with zero fear. El Hadji Diouf absolutely terrorized that aging French defense. Then Papa Bouba Diop scored the winner, delivering one of the most iconic corner flag celebrations in World Cup history. France looked slow, disconnected, arrogant, and totally unprepared. The sheer panic only escalated from there. Against Uruguay, Henry saw a straight red for a reckless tackle during a miserable 0-0 draw. Then a heavily bandaged Zidane returned way too early against Denmark. The poor guy could barely move out there, and France lost 2-0. Just like that, the reigning world champions crashed out in the group stage. Dead last, 1 point, 0 goals scored. An absolute international disaster. To this day, it remains one of the most embarrassing title defenses in football history, and a permanent warning about exactly what happens when raw talent, arrogance, physical exhaustion, and terrible leadership all crash together. Coming off a fierce run to the 2006 World Cup final, it seriously looked like France would completely dominate European football for years. The squad was absolutely stacked with legendary veterans like Thierry Henry, Claude Makélélé, Lilian Thuram, while a fresh crop of young football stars like Karim Benzema, Samir Nasri, and Franck Ribéry were just exploding onto the scene. On paper, this squad looked terrifying. In reality, they completely collapsed like a cheap lawn chair. France finished dead last at Euro 2008, grabbing just 1 point and a -5 goal difference. France drew a brutal group of death alongside the Netherlands, Italy, and Romania. But instead of stepping up, the national team looked sluggish, totally disconnected, and completely lost. Their opening match against Romania ended 0-0. It was an incredibly boring performance. I still remember that game. I honestly fell asleep watching my television. France held the ball but created zero danger. All build-up. Absolutely no end product. What does that even mean? Then came the absolute humiliation against the Dutch. The Netherlands absolutely tore them apart 4-1 on the counterattack, exposing how painfully slow the French defense was. Maybe skip the morning croissants, guys. Against Italy, the whole campaign just imploded. Franck Ribéry got injured right away. Eric Abdel got sent off inside 25 minutes. France crashed out after a miserable 2-0 loss. But the true reason for this disaster went way deeper than tactics. The squad was totally fractured internally. Their manager, Raymond Domenech, had already become seriously hated across French football. People saw him as eccentric, way too defensive, and honestly just totally bizarre. Wild stories about him using astrology for squad decisions became legendary. Rumors claimed he flat-out distrusted certain zodiac signs. Tactically, he completely handcuffed the roster. Even with legendary attackers like Henry, Benzema, and Nicolas Anelka ready to go, Domenech just overloaded the midfield with defenders, starving the attack of creativity and any real service. The squad itself was also boiling with massive internal tension. That older generation from 2006 just didn't trust or respect the younger football players coming up. Massive ego clashes were happening everywhere. One famous story had Nazi accidentally taking Henry's usual seat on the team bus, which sparked an absolutely massive argument inside the training camp. Little cliques started forming. Players stopped fighting for the badge, and the squad chemistry just vanished. They felt like a French Real Madrid. Meanwhile, Domenech completely botched the transition between the older and newer generations. Aging players who were visibly losing a step kept getting minutes no matter what, while young talent was tossed into absolute chaos with zero structure. Thuram, at 36 years old, looked entirely exposed against lightning-fast counterattacks. Abidal was awkwardly shoved into a center-back role that really didn't suit his playstyle, and Captain Patrick Vieira just sat in the squad injured all tournament long, because Domenech stubbornly refused to replace him. Then came the one moment that perfectly summed up this era. Right after France was dumped out by Italy, Domenech went live on television for his post-match interview. Instead of actually explaining the disaster, this guy literally proposed to his girlfriend on live television. The French fans were absolutely furious. The national squad just suffered one of their worst tournaments in modern history, and their manager is pulling off performative stunts for his girl on camera. Looking back at it today, Euro 2008 feels less like a random failure and more like blazing warning signs. Because 2 years later, everything completely blew up during that infamous mutiny at the 2010 World Cup. That 2010 tournament became an absolute national embarrassment. The whole World Cup rundown in South Africa felt totally broken right from day one. Under Raymond Domenech, the locker room vibe was totally chaotic, super tense, and plagued by deep internal divisions. Things finally exploded during France's miserable 2-0 loss against Mexico. Right at halftime, star striker Nicolas Anelka reportedly just lost his mind arguing with Domenech in the dressing room, aggressively screaming insults at the manager in front of everyone. When Anelka flat-out refused to apologize the next day, the French Federation kicked him out of their World Cup roster entirely. Furious about Anelka getting sent packing, the entire French squad went on strike and refused to train. With baffled journalists and television cameras watching from the sidelines, team captain Patrice Evra got into an explosive screaming match with their fitness coach, Robert Duever, right there on the open training pitch. Du finally snapped, chucked his whistle into the grass in absolute disgust, and stormed off. Then came the single image that completely humiliated French football. The players walked right back onto the team bus, yanked the curtain shut, and flat-out refused to step outside. The French national team was literally on strike during a World Cup. Somehow things got even more surreal. Domenech himself walked over to the press and awkwardly read aloud a letter from his own players, openly attacking the federation. I mean, at least he wasn't proposing this time, so that's progress. The manager basically became the spokesperson for a mutiny against his own bosses. Even the highest senior officials in French football were left totally speechless. National team director Jean-Louis Valentine resigned immediately, in tears. He told reporters he was absolutely disgusted and ashamed of the squad. Back home in France, the public reaction was pure, unfiltered rage. The media completely tore the squad apart. Papers branded the players as spoiled celebrities and arrogant kids, totally out of touch. One brutal headline basically read, "It was bad enough fielding the worst side at the tournament. Being the absolute dumbest team too just made the humiliation so much worse." The scandal grew so massive that French President Nicolas Sarkozy actually stepped in to calm things down. Meanwhile, on the pitch, naturally, the French football team completely fell apart. They lost their final match to South Africa, crashing out of the World Cup in absolute disgrace. The real problem for France is that these massive collapses are not just ancient history. Even during Euro 2020, the French squad found a way to self-destruct. Arriving as world champions, they were easily seen as Europe's strongest team. Bringing back Karim Benzema gave them a front line that looked straight up unfair on paper. With Benzema, Mbappe, and Griezmann linking up, everyone expected France to cruise to another major trophy. Then came the round of 16 against Switzerland, and everything just completely unraveled. Manager Didier Deschamps completely abandoned the tactical blueprint that literally made France world champions. Missing both natural left-backs, he suddenly swapped to an experimental back three, a system the squad had barely ever used in competitive football. The tactical shift looked totally uncomfortable from the start. Adrien Rabiot was awkwardly shoved out wide as a wing-back, a role he clearly hated. Meanwhile, Clement Lenglet, who was barely getting any club minutes, got thrown straight into the starting defense. The formation crumbled almost instantly. Lenglet was easily beaten in the air by Seferovic for the opening goal. France looked totally lost on the ball, and their high press was basically non-existent. At halftime, Deschamps finally realized the setup was a total disaster and reverted to a back four. Suddenly, their sheer individual quality exploded. Karim Benzema netted twice in rapid succession. Then Paul Pogba delivered one of the goals of the tournament, an outrageous curling strike from distance to make it 3-1. Right then, the game looked more finished than Suarez's knees. The French squad had all the momentum. Switzerland looked shattered. Everyone expected the world champions to easily kill the game off. But instead, France lost all discipline. The forwards just stopped pressing. The midfield was left wide open, the defense lost its shape, and Switzerland kept pushing. France started leaving massive gaps out wide. Their defensive organization vanished. The Swiss punished them with 2 late goals, tying it 3-3. Then things somehow got even more chaotic. While the match spiraled out of control on the pitch, the tension exploded in the stands. Rabiot's mother apparently got into a screaming match with the families of Pogba and Mbappe. She loudly blamed them for the collapse, trashing Mbappe's attitude right in front of the press. It perfectly mirrored the toxic atmosphere surrounding the squad. Way too many egos, too much tension, zero unity. And when the match inevitably hit penalties, all the pressure landed squarely on Mbappe's shoulders. The poster boy of French football had struggled all tournament long without finding the net once. Then his decisive penalty was blocked by Yann Sommer. Just like that, the reigning world champions were out. Historically, France becomes unstoppable when their superstars sacrifice for the badge instead of hunting personal glory. That is exactly what happened at the 1998 World Cup. Playing on home soil, manager Aim Jacquet built a brutally disciplined defensive machine. He anchored it with legends like Lilian Thuram, Blanc, Desailly, and Lizarazu. That rock-solid structure gave Zinedine Zidane the pure freedom to paint as the team's artist. And in the final against Brazil, Zidane delivered one of the greatest performances in football history. He scored 2 massive headers in a dominant 3-0 win. Winning that World Cup became so much bigger than just football across France. For a fleeting moment, the nation felt totally united. They rallied behind a multicultural squad reflecting a brand new modern French identity. Fast forward 20 years, and France unlocked another winning formula. At the 2018 World Cup in Russia, Didier Deschamps realized something massive. His squad had absurd attacking talent, but raw talent alone was actually dangerous. So instead of crafting a flashy, free-flowing setup, Deschamps hammered home strict discipline first. He turned stars like Paul Pogba, Antoine Griezmann, and a teenage Kylian Mbappe into relentless tactical soldiers. Honestly, I doubt Mbappe has pressed a single time since. France defended as a tight unit, They countered with blinding speed and looked mentally unbreakable. They survived an absolute 4-3 war against Argentina in the round of 16. They eventually crushed Croatia 4-2 in the final. Not always pretty football, but man, it was ruthless and incredibly efficient. That exact blueprint fuels every legendary tournament run France puts together. Iron defense plus total discipline plus pure flashes of genius equals a championship. Honestly, 2022 might be the rawest emotional example yet. France went to Qatar totally buried under injuries and dark clouds of doubt. Massive stars kept dropping out before a single ball was kicked. Everyone thought the squad was way too broken to defend their title. Yet somehow, against all odds, they fought right back to the final. Then came what many consider the greatest World Cup final ever played. For 80 straight minutes against Argentina, the French looked totally dead. Then the turtle woke up. 2 rapid goals in barely a minute. He nailed another penalty in extra time to seal a World Cup final hat-trick. At times, it genuinely felt like he was dragging the whole nation forward on his own. France ultimately lost on penalties after that crazy 3-3 draw. But that performance somehow pushed their aura even higher. Pure heartbreak, yeah. But also proof of how truly terrifying France becomes when their raw talent catches fire under pressure. Now the French want their crown back. And they are bringing a squad absolutely overflowing with world-class talent. If you want to feel like part of that famous French squad yourself, grab a jersey from buygamejs.com using code PETTALKS at checkout. In goal, Mike Maignan completely commands the back line as an elite shot stopper. Right in front of him is William Saliba. He has easily become one of the best center backs on the planet right now. He was absolutely massive for Arsenal winning the Premier League. The guy just has everything. Ice cold under pressure, physically dominant, elite in one-on-one spots, and so smooth playing out the back. Beside him, France rotates Konate or Upamecano. Konate brings raw recovery speed and muscle, while Upamecano perfectly anchors an aggressive high press. We saw him shine at Bayern under Vincent Kompany. We can just ignore his rare bozo moments out wide. Deschamps completely trusts Jules Koundé, even after a pretty tough season at Barcelona. Meanwhile, Malo Gusto adds serious right-back depth with endless attacking energy and sharp overlapping runs. Over on the left, Theo Hernandez and Lucas Hernandez give France crazy athleticism and rapid recovery defending. They also bring pure width going forward. Midfield gets trickier though, entering a brand new era without Antoine Griezmann. Replacing Griezmann's pure football IQ is basically impossible. To fix that, Deschamps leans heavily on a mix of veterans and fresh energy. Tchouaméni is an elite holding midfielder. He wins heavy duels and casually drops a clutch goal when you need it most. Plus, N'Golo Kanté is somehow still dominating despite pushing 40. He plays for Fenerbahce now, still covering absolute miles of turf on defense. Rabiot brings muscle and tempo control. Meanwhile, young bloods like Zaire Emery and Manu Kone add fierce aggression and versatility. But let's be totally honest here. The true firepower of this squad is the attack. I mean, you could split this roster in half, and both sides would likely smash their way straight to a World Cup semifinal. It all starts with Mbappe. Entering his 3rd World Cup, the Real Madrid superstar chases pure history. Sitting on 12 tournament goals already, he is getting dangerously close to Miroslav Klose's all-time tournament scoring record. Then there is Dembele, arriving as the reigning Ballon d'Or winner and easily the most unplayable winger on earth today. Right behind them, the depth is just endless. Olise and Cherki bring massive creative sparks. Du shows up after an explosive season, cementing himself as one of Europe's hottest young ballers. Bradley Barcola adds lethal, direct pace. Marcus Thuram brings heavy physicality and dangerous movement. After Hugo Ekitike suffered that devastating Achilles injury, Deschamps called up Jean-Philippe Mateta. On paper, France has the scariest roster alive. But French football history proves one bitter truth over and over again. Raw talent guarantees absolutely nothing. If laziness creeps in, or massive egos clash, history shows even the greatest French generation will collapse overnight. Now, if you want to see what happens to Mbappe's legacy if he wins another World Cup, you just have to